Well, hello there, friends. I'm having a bit of problem with YouTube hiding my other video today, so I'm just going to start over. I got a cough drop in my mouth. And the problem we're dealing with now, one that David Icke has been talking about for 30 years, and I've been talking about for 20 years, is that nothing is free anymore. Nothing is free. And they say you can put up a video on YouTube, but if they don't like it, they'll hide it. And they'll make sure that nobody can get to it. And that's what technocracy has done to us and for us, is place us under their control. When they're not charging us, they're banning us, or they're ignoring us. And that's the state of the world these days. Now we are in a situation with what is called a virus. It's a flu virus. Like many of the other viruses that have come out of Fort Detrick, Maryland, since 1983, when Dr. Fauci started working there. And first there was the HIV virus, and then, we have the SARS and the H1N1 and the H1N2 and so on. Fort Detrick was supposed to be a place where defensive viruses were developed, but instead we have offensive viruses. And we, the people, are subject to them. And that's just how it is. We are also subject to the binary digital computer world, which is very unnatural. The human body operates by vibrations of the Schumann resonance and of our own energies up and down the spinal column. We're electronic, biochemical beings. And the viruses that have been set to plague us and to actually move us out of our complacency, which I think was part of the intent, right, have not achieved moving us out of complacency. What they've given us is a perennial cold in the wintertime. So we have breathing problems every winter and spring, and we're blowing our nose, and we can't breathe, and we're coughing, and we're miserable, okay? But that isn't the only cause of breathing problems. In my particular case, I was born with a congenital blood anomaly, porphyria. And the health effect of porphyria is that you don't utilize oxygen very well, and you have to come up with ways to oxygenate your body that are kind of novel. You have to dream up ways to utilize oxygen because your little tiny blood cells that are developed in your long bones are not adequate to the job. And that's why I got interested in the whole problem of oxygenation of the body, because I didn't just have the porphyria. Then I went into the pheochromocytoma, which kickstarts my heart because the porphyria is causing me to not breathe enough to keep the energy going. See what I mean? There's all these steps to the problem of congenital malformations. Okay. And so I learned how to manage my breathing when I had something I was allergic to, or I was in the way of a microwave oven, or I got a terrible emotional shock, or I was under too much stress for too long. I had to learn how to deal with those situations. And I did. I'm still here. I'm still here. I must have done something right. And so now that the virus is causing people to not be able to breathe, all right, and 5G is exploding the water in human cells, so the cells dehydrate and the individual who is subject to 5G is not able to breathe. Okay, that's part 2. Part 3, and now we live in a world that has been chemtrailed for about 20 years, and the Environmental Protection Agency has made it a conscious policy to avoid testing the atmosphere for oxygen saturation. So nobody knows what the oxygen status of the air is. Isn't that interesting? That's really interesting. And so all of a sudden, people in Indonesia and out on the ocean and all over Europe, particularly where there's 5G, people are having problems breathing. They're having problems breathing. And the EPA doesn't know anything about it. And the doctors are utilizing respirators instead of just applying oxygen. But if you go to YouTube, you can find 100 different gizmos and gadgets, oxygen canisters and oxygen testers and oxygen supplements. So somebody must have already figured out that oxygen is no longer free. Just like clean water is no longer free. And growing food in your own backyard because you can't keep your seeds from year to year is no longer free. And socializing your children in a public school where the children are taught responsibility and respect and dignity and respect for each other and for the prior generations, that doesn't work anymore. It's no longer free. So as David Icke has pointed out, we are living in a society run by predatory gamers. They're gaming us. They're fooling us. They're tricking us. They're giving us distractions. And nothing is free. Not anymore. In fact, land is so unfree that it is taxed to the point of monetary currency turnover that very few people can maintain, because you have to have a constant turnover in the local currency in order to be allowed to live on the property supposedly that you own. Okay? Even if you've paid it off, it's no longer free. There's nothing free. Well, I think it's time for us to recognize the fact that the oxygen in the air is no longer free and it is being restricted. It has been restricted by chemtrails. It is restricted by repeated viruses coming out of Fort Detrick and defense contracts. Okay, it is restricted by the internet connections that keep us all connected, because the microwaves interfere with our body's ability to absorb the oxygen we need. So we are people in need of oxygen now. And we're going to have to buy it from now on. All right? See what I'm saying? That's not free either. And ideas are not free. Thoughts are not free. Dreams are not free. That's the system we live under. And unless God steps in and does something very, very dramatic, we are going to have to learn how to adapt ourselves and evolve ourselves to live in a vacuum where we can't grow our own food and we can't wander the neighborhood and we can't just go where we want when we want. We're no longer free and nothing is free. How about those apples? Well, let's see what happens to this one. We'll see you later.